Hi, I'm Amy Pavlina. Today I'm going to continue with our series of videos to show how to implement a lesson for Passport to Social Studies, Grade 4, Unit 3, Day 1. In my last video, I showed you how to add the materials for the lesson into an assignment and the different parts of the lesson that you will see as you're teaching synchronously and asynchronously. Today, I'm going to show you one option for how to split the lesson into synchronous work and asynchronous work for your students to work on. We will also work on getting students set up for independent practice. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my lesson. And as I click on it, here I am with my slides. Since we've gone over all of this, I can now delete the parts of my slides that I do not need to show during instruction. So I'm going to delete slides 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I could do this by clicking on all of them that I don't need and clicking delete. Now I'm set with the beginning of the lesson, the unit launch perceptions. And I have my lesson objective. I'm ready to get started. So one thing that I'm going to do for synchronous instruction, one of the big things was really having students understand the word perceive. I want to know what students' understanding of the word perceive is for my synchronous instruction. So I want to get them started with a Jamboard to kind of gauge their understanding of what the word perceive means. I'm going to do this by going into Google and clicking on my waffle and scrolling down to Jamboard. Jamboard's a great thing to use both remotely and in person, working with a hybrid model, because you can get students set up to collaborate even when they're not together. So I'm going to click this plus to create a new jam. And now I have my Jamboard for students to work collaboratively, even though they're not together. And I'm just going to get to gauge their understanding to see what my students know about the word perception, because that was the big target for my students to move forward throughout this unit. And I'm going to come over here to where the sticky note is and click on it. And I'm going to put my question, what does the word perception mean? And then I'm going to put the word perceive. And I want to see what my students know about this word. I could put pictures here as well. I could change my background up, but I just want to know and really take a pulse of my class to see what they already know to gauge their background understanding. Next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to look back at those slides. And with those slides, it's telling me to view image 1 and image 2 in present mode. So I'm going to consider, what might the Native Americans think or feel about the Europeans on this ship? I want to get my students involved. So I'm going to take the image and I'm going to copy this image by doing Control C or right clicking and clicking copy. And I'm going to get my students ready for synchronous instruction and have this ready to go on a Jamboard by pasting this picture on here so they can see it here. And I want to see what they're thinking with this picture. So I'm going to even put some questions for my students on this Jamboard. So now I have my picture on my Jamboard and I'm setting them up with the guiding questions from the lesson. And I'm using the Jamboard just as a way to get communication going with my students, to get them participating with the lesson and interacting with my lesson. If I'm teaching hybrid, this may look different. Remotely, this is a great way to get students engaged within the lesson during synchronous instruction. So here's the first picture from the synchronous part of the instruction. Let's go back into the lesson on the slides. And I'm now going to take the second image and I'm going to copy and paste it onto another slide for my Jamboard. Same questions to guide their understanding, just to get a pulse of what the students are seeing. What are they noticing? Because this is new for fourth graders to see these primary documents that are this old and taking it into perception of what they can do with these documents. I want to see what they know to see how I'm going to set them up for independent activities and who I'm going to pull for a small group for more guided instruction independently. So on my Jamboard, I just go to another frame. And again, I just copy and paste that image over. And I'm going to put the same questions on there as well. Now that I have my questions on here on Post-its, I would share it with my students on the Jamboard by going to share and opening up the link to anyone with editor access. Now, while I'm in my Meet or in my Zoom meeting, I'll just copy this link and paste it in the chat, and my students will have access to all 3 slides. And I could guide them through instruction by starting the lesson off with, what does the word perception mean? What does it mean to perceive something or have a perception towards something? Then, just as the lesson did, I'm going to move into my pictures, but I'm going to encourage student talk and student collaboration with looking at the picture and answering, what might the Native Americans think or feel about the Europeans on the ships? What might the Europeans on the ships think or feel about the Native Americans? And looking at these two synchronously, I'm going to go back into my lesson and I might put some of the noticings that the students noticed from the Jamboard, and I'm going to put it on here. And maybe I might put another question on the Jamboard of, what questions do you have about these images? Maybe they're discussing it, maybe they're writing it in the chat during my synchronous meet. And I'm going to go through the rest of the slides before sending students off into independent practice. And this is going to really tie in both pictures together. So today we went over synchronous instruction for students in Passport to Social Studies, Grade 4, Unit 3, Day 1. In our next video, I'm going to show you how to split this up into group work for students to work independently.